Welcome everyone out to Money Matrix Mastermind. This is week 2. We're so thankful that you are part of this mastermind. I got a super special guest with us today, Levi McPherson, dear friend of mine and previous business partner. But before I bring him up, I want to share with you an experience I had this last weekend. It was Easter weekend. I was down in Moab. I was riding razors with a good friend of mine, and the things that we were doing were truly unprecedented. I've never experienced anything like it, where I literally thought we were going to die at every turn. These hills were so steep, and you would just follow these black marks that the razors and the Jeeps had made, for decades. And as we're going down them, every single time I thought, this is where I'm going to die. I mean, the names of these things were Hell's Revenge, the Devil's Beast, the Devil's Stomach, and it was just like unprecedented on the things that we were climbing. And as we were going through it, I kept seeing some people who were doing it with ease. Like they had no problem whatsoever. So I'm a curious guy, and I started asking questions like, how are you able to do that? Your machine and my machine are the same, but you are just ripping this, and I feel like I'm going to die. So tell me, how do you have your machine set up? And just those few questions. Last week we talked about if you change your process, you'll change your outcome. So I asked a couple questions, and lo and behold, I just changed the shocks, the fluid that goes in the shocks. I took off my sway bars, and all of a sudden my machine performed at a whole new level. Now my buddy and I have basically the exact same machine. At about halfway through the day, I said, "Oh, are you just having a blast?" He's like, "No." What do you mean no? He said, "No, this has been the worst experience of my life. I'm getting beat up." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm floating on clouds." He said, "What?" I said, well, let's switch vehicles. So we switched vehicles, and within literally about 3 minutes, I was done. I'm like, no, I want mine back. And it made me kind of realize how life works. We all have the same 24 hours. We all are living this same life, but some of us are living it a wholly different experience. So after we realized that his machine wasn't set up properly, we changed his shocks, we took off his sway bars. All of a sudden, it was a whole new day, a whole new game. We ended up staying an extra day because we were both having so much more fun. So as we go through today, I want you to think about, how is your life modified to reach your goals? You're having the same experience as other people, or let me rephrase it. You're living the same life as other people, meaning it's the same date today for everybody. The sun is up, the sun goes down, it rains, it snows, it's sunny. However, you are experiencing it completely different. Along the way, I met a gentleman who actually lives in my neighborhood, and he is a guide down in Moab. And so I said, would you show us how to drive this stuff? I mean, I know how to race a razor on a dirt road, but we're talking about a wholly different experience here. He's like, yeah, let's take you out. And he had a buddy with him named Gabe. Gabe, to describe Gabe, he kind of looked like, the best word, not to be disrespectful, was a fat, overweight redneck in a beat-up razor. And he literally was going up and down things that $100,000 machines couldn't do because he had such expertise. And he was unassuming. He was hysterical. He was funny. People were cussing at him because he made it look so easy. Like literally one guy started cussing at him for making it look easy when his $100,000 Jeep couldn't make it up the devil's hot tub. And so it was just funny to see him just go through life like it was no big deal. And I thought, how many of our friends and family members who have incredible expertise make everything look like it's no big deal? So with that being said, remember, if we change our process, we'll change our outcome. Please mute yourself. If you have not muted yourself, please do so. Once again, if we lose anything, if you lose audio or if you lose visual, please just go out of the link and come back on. Without further ado, I want to bring up one of my absolute dearest friends. And it is Levi McPherson. He and I have known each other for about 5 years now. We've owned and shared different businesses together. He brought to me this incredible concept of the law of outcomes. It is his content, and it is truly probably one of the most profound things I have learned in the last decade. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up Levi McPherson.
All right. Well, hey guys, I am super excited to share some content with you. I understand you've had a little bit of exposure. A lot of you who have seen me present at regional events or at nationals have heard the concept of the law of outcomes. But what I'm going to share with you today, I think is actually going to revolutionize not only your life but your businesses, as long as you pay very close attention and as long as you apply it. Now, we don't have a ton of time. This is content that I could literally take you all out all day, every day for several weeks and train you on. But today, I want to give you some real meat, some stuff that's going to that you're really going to be able to bite into. So I've titled this presentation, The 3 Things That Influence All of Your Outcomes. So let's just jump in. I'm going to do a quick review on the law of outcomes. So law of outcomes, as Woody mentioned, straightforward. Every outcome is attached to a process. So as soon as you accept that, and this is a natural universal law, whether or not it's something in your behavioral process, whether or not it's something in your in one of our scientific or natural processes. As soon as you accept that, you now can recognize the opportunity, which is simply principle number 1. If you change your process, you will change your outcome, and that's actually a huge opportunity from an awareness standpoint, that you realize what if you're experiencing a negative outcome in your life or in your business. It's very simple. You just have to change the process that's leading to that outcome. So principle number 2 to understand, and these 2 principles are the most impactful that I have ever encountered in my personal life, in my business. These are the principles that allowed me to take $8,000 and turn it into $1 million in 18 months in my very, very first business in life. Simply, the earlier in the process you apply change, the more leverage you will have on the outcome. So we'll get into this a little bit, but I just wanted to do a refresher on these concepts. So before we jump in, I understand that everybody here is in business. Everybody is trying to accomplish something from a financial standpoint, but there's reasons behind those things. There's lifestyle reasons. There's health reasons. There's relationship reasons. There's a lot of drivers, things that that really cause us to do what we do. And I just want to make sure that moving forward, we have a perspective that the principles that we're about to dive into apply in every single aspect of life. Doesn't matter what it is you're trying to change, every aspect of life. So what is it that you want to achieve? If you've got a pen and pad with you, while we're talking, just, doodle, jot down, ask yourself some questions, write down, I would really like to change this in my business. Or from a lifestyle standpoint, most people are driven by 3 things, increase income, better relationships, and better health. So just jot down some things that you actually want to accomplish while we're going through this. So I know you've seen this diagram. It's the quadrants, the different types of, instead of calling it the different types of personalities, it's actually the different types of outcomes. So you've got mavericks, visionaries, gamblers, people that are in the talent sector, and every single outcome that you experience is going to fall into one of these quadrants. That doesn't mean if you've been exposed to this, that doesn't mean that by default, by personality, you are a maverick or you are a gambler or a talent or even a visionary. Even the most visionary individuals that we've classified in the world actually have fallen into these other categories at different points. So basically what I want everyone to understand is there are traps that actually put us into these different categories, these different quadrants. So ask yourself this question: what's your favorite trap? What's your favorite trap that puts you into one of those quadrants? Is it from a maverick standpoint? Are you so set on the my way or the highway mindset that you're not teachable? You're not willing to look at others for information, for processes, kind of like Woody talked about, where, he could have driven his razor my way or the highway, and he could have ended up rolling it or something crazy. But fortunately, he was willing to ask some people that had done some things, that understood how to do it. Or, is your one of your habits to get angry or to be afraid? Those are traps that we fall into. So again, just kind of be aware of what processes that you're following. And by the way, at this point, I understand, I talked to Woody a little bit about the conversation that you guys had last week. And he had gone through the quadrants, and he mentioned that, some of the questions you guys had were, well, okay, so I find myself falling into the Maverick quadrant, and I can see that I'm falling for some of these traps. Well, how do I get out of that? So that's actually what we're going to go in today. Now, again, these quadrants are simply a frame. They're just the way we view the outcomes and processes. So it's not a personality. It's just the way that we view things. So like Charlie Brown, we're viewing it from the outside, looking at, hey, Charlie, come kick the football. It's kind of like the definition of insanity. Unfortunately, what happens to us is, if we're not aware of our processes, if we don't look through the frame, we just keep running and kicking the football, and we fall flat on our back every single time. So what I'm hoping to do for you today is actually grant you some awareness. So again, the traps fall into different categories, but the biggest traps that we fall into are the Maverick, the Gambler, and the Talent trap. And by the way, if there's a little bit of latency on the slides, I tend to talk kind of fast and click through the buttons. Apologize if there's a little latency. Let me know if I'm talking a little too fast before you see the before you actually see the slides come up. I'll take a little bit of a pause before I hit each slide. So, what determines which quadrants yield most of our outcomes? I mentioned before that we're not necessarily just visionary, we're not necessarily just Maverick, we're not necessarily just Gambler, we're not just Talent. But there is something that determines which quadrant is yielding most of our outcomes. And it's a very, very simple analogy or approach that I want to explain to you here. So most of us have encountered a three-legged stool in our life, and most of us actually encountered the analogy of a three-legged stool. From a structural standpoint, it takes all three legs to hold up the stool. You knock one leg out, and the stool comes falling down. Well, the three major things that influence all of our outcomes can be explained through this three-legged stool. The first one is our beliefs. If you don't have the correct beliefs that align with the desired outcomes that you want to achieve, your stool will fall over. You might try a whole bunch of different things, but again, if your beliefs do not align, your stool will fall down. You might have the right beliefs, but what happens if you have a habit, a destructive habit? An analogy I used to use in my first business, I used to turn around businesses, and we used to say that we're all in a boat, and we're in this boat. We're trying to get to this destination called wealth, and every once in a while would have somebody on the boat that would take out a drill and start drilling holes in the boat. It was a habit. It was something that we had to look at and we had to change. We had to decide whether or not to throw them off the boat or whether or not to change the habit. Now, fortunately, most of the time we changed the habit instead of throwing them off the boat. Finally, strategies. So you might have the right belief system. You might even have some great habits, but you may have the wrong strategy. So think about real estate for just a minute. You may have a belief system that you can generate millions of dollars within the next few years. You may have a habit of working hard, looking at lots of properties, or you may even be in the situation that I was in. After I came to the my very first Renatus training, where I actually learned some of the strategies, I was actually angry because the last income property that I sold, it was one that I had held on to for 4 years, just over 4 years. I had positive cash flow on it every single month. And when I sold the business, when I sold the piece of real estate, I netted about $50,000. But just one strategy that I learned, I realized that I could have netted over 300 grand on the exact same property. So if you don't have an alignment...
Guys, I need you to pause on your end. Someone keeps coming back in. Make sure that you are muted on your end, please. Thank you very much. Sorry for the interruption.
So again, if you don't have a perfect alignment of the right strategies, the right beliefs, and the right habits, then you're not going to get the outcomes that you desire. Let's see. Oops. It didn't go to my next. Then we paused out. Just 1 second.
Just click the screen.
Okay. There we go. Yeah. All right. So basically, these 3 things have the greatest influence on the outcomes that you're trying to experience. So let's go back to the quadrants. Within each of the quadrants, there is this exact same diagram. There are beliefs, strategies, and habits that support the outcomes. If you're a maverick, or if you fall into that process, you're experiencing those outcomes, it's because you have beliefs, you have habits and strategies that dictate those outcomes. If you're find that you keep getting results that are in the talent category, it's because you have beliefs, strategies, and habits that align with those outcomes. So let's just review again. Go back. If you change your process, you will change your outcome. What we've just described in those 3 major factors is processes and outcomes. So it gives you a clue on what you need to change in order to change your outcomes. A lot of times when I train people for the first time and I say, hey, change your process, change your outcome. Well, the question is, what process? There's a whole bunch of different things I can change, but what am I supposed to change? Well, go back to the quadrants. If you want visionary outcomes, you need to change the beliefs, the processes of beliefs, the processes of your habits, and the processes of your strategies to achieve high control and high influence on a visionary outcome. So hopefully you can see how all these things are starting to tie together. Another review again, principle number 2, the earlier in the process you apply change, the more leverage you will have on the outcome. So I'm going to take you through one of my absolute favorite comparisons on this, or stories. In high school, I was a high jumper. Unfortunately, I didn't start until my high school year, and although I had tremendous height, I didn't have a lot of flexibility in my back, meaning I could go over the bar flat backed at 6 foot. If I had more arch in my back, I could have taken a state championship. I could have had a 6'8" plus jump, according to my coach that actually coached the college team. But if you look at this, this is the history of the men's high jump world record. You notice that it goes along steady, and all of a sudden it takes a vertical, literally a vertical leap. That vertical leap is an indicator of a process changing, a dramatic process. So what was it that changed? Any of you that know about high jumping know that early high jumpers actually went over the bar forward, and then some people went over sideways. But what actually changed was this guy. He decided he was going to go over the bar backwards, not forwards and not sideways. He decided to go over backwards. His name was Dick Fosbury, and this jump has been labeled the Fosbury flop. It literally revolutionized the sport of high jumping. So the same thing that I use to go over the bar in high school was the same thing that he developed. So again, what changed for Dick Fosbury? Well, first of all, go back to the three-legged stool. His belief. What did he change about his belief? Well, he changed the belief that, oh, guess what? You've got to go over the bar forward, or you've got to go over the bar sideways. He changed his habits. Now, the old habits would dictate you run at the bar a specific way, you jump over the bar a specific way. He also changed his strategy. Now, a lot of people before that time would look at, okay, the only way to get over that bar, to get a higher height, you got to improve your athleticism. Or maybe a strategy was to get better shoes, better shorts, less wind resistance, something of that nature. But the reality is, he first had to change his belief about how the game was being played. And I believe this is why everyone's so sold on the Renata system, is because the Renata system does exactly this. It changes your beliefs on what is possible. If you follow the teachings, you end up changing your habit, and of course you take a different strategic approach. So you end up with different outcomes. So in your own business or in your own personal life, the things that you want to change most, how can you achieve exponential change, visionary outcomes? What is it that you need to do? So you have old processes that are leading to old outcomes. Are there beliefs that you have about the way that others work with you on your team? Is there a belief that you have about the way you interact with your relationships that's causing you to get an old set of outcomes? Is there a new process that you can follow that will get you new outcomes? Now, naturally, you understand the law of outcomes. All it takes is changing your process. Any little change. Some of you have heard me train on the concept of the AIR leadership system, how you can be a leader in every conversation by simply changing one thing. Asking questions, asking more questions and more of the right kind of questions determines whether or not you're the leader in the conversation or whether or not you are the follower in the conversation. Remember, in any conversation, there is a leader and there's a follower, and what determines on who wins that conversation, if it's a persuasive conversation, it's who the leader is. And remember, again, we are all hardwired to avoid making change. Unfortunately, it's one of our survival instincts. So if you're trying to persuade someone to alter their beliefs, that it's possible to make an income, to retire into real estate investing, you're trying to convince them to part with old ways, you have to be the leader in that conversation. And they're hardwired to avoid that. So you need to actually be positioned as an expert. That's actually a training for a different time, but I just wanted to bring it up. So basically, when you're looking at the types of processes that you need to impact both for yourself and for those that you're trying to influence, again, you're influencing yourself and others, it's the beliefs, the strategies, and the habits. That is the core. So again, earlier in your process, higher leverage. So look at the, this is one you've heard over and over and over, putting a man on the moon. So what changed? Now, they were trying certain strategies and they had certain habits up until that point. But where did the true leverage occur that determined that we were going to put a man on the moon within the decade? It actually started with one speech. So you have desired outcomes, put a man on the moon. The beliefs, habits, strategies, but the leverage point was the beliefs. I always say that the earlier in the process you apply change, the more leverage. What's earlier in the process than your belief system? Literally, is there anything earlier in any process that you follow than your belief system? Now, I understand next week Woody's going to train a little bit more on this in depth. But if you want to start looking at areas that you need to apply change, it's your belief system that you'll probably get the most leverage. I look at like Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods, arguably the greatest golf player of all time, and yet he fell from his throne. Of these three things, what was it that caused him to fall from his throne? Was it his strategy? Well, I kind of doubt it, at least when it comes to his golf play, because he had at his disposal the greatest golf coaches in the world. Was it his habits? Again, I doubt that. He had put more hours than any player, arguably, on the planet, and he had had more time in the championship role. What caused him to fall? It was his beliefs. He was a fallen hero. His personal habits, unfortunately, spilled over into his professional life. So, if Tiger Woods wanted to get back up on top of his game, where should he apply leverage? Which process would he need to change? What beliefs did he hold that actually determined whether or not that stool gave him a visionary outcome in his golf play? Now look at yourself in the same arena. So again, go back to the quadrants. High control. What can you control? So even if we're looking at, the Tiger Woods story, right? Within his personal belief system, what can he control? In your own business, what can you control when it comes to your beliefs, your habits, or your strategies? If you're looking at just beliefs, well, the first thing I imagine is awareness. You can control what you know about the beliefs that you have. Most people, the vast majority of individuals you see walking around you every day, have no clue what they truly believe about what they're doing. And the only reason why they have no clue about their own beliefs is because they've never asked themselves, what do I really believe about this? What are my beliefs about money? What are my beliefs about relationships? What are my beliefs about business? What are my beliefs about real estate? Everyone has beliefs. So as soon as you have beliefs, earlier in the process, if you change those beliefs, which belief is the earliest in the process that you can apply change, and how will it influence your outcomes? Which strategies have the greatest impact on the desire that you have for change? Now, the number one strategy that I want you to take away from just this slide here is to always start with what you can control. We spend far too much time focusing our emotional energy on things that we only have influence over as opposed to control. I used to train this with my sales organizations. I'd come in, you'd have that one guy that was complaining about the lead quality. He'd say, the leads are crap today, and yet his desired outcome was to get higher sales that day. So I'd draw two circles on the board in front of him. Say, all right, this circle is what you can control, and this is what you can influence. Can you control the lead quality? Well, no, I can't. Well, then that goes in the influence circle. What can you control? Well, I can control my attitude. I can control actually, you can control your beliefs about what's possible with the existing leads. You can control the questions that you ask and the words that come out of your mouth. And I get them in a different state of mind, focusing on what they can control, and believe it or not, every single time their outcomes would change. So, go back full circle. in your personal life, in your business life, what do you want to change most? What will have the greatest impact on your personal level of happiness, satisfaction, achievement, fulfillment? What is it that you truly want? What do you truly desire? Woody always says, you can't hit a target that you can't see. So what target are you trying to hit? What is it that you truly want, and then what do you believe about it? Remember, 3 things that influence all of your outcomes: beliefs, strategies, and habits. Now we're going to get to the action point. Here's your assignment. Here's your takeaway. Here's what you need to apply. And again, we could go really in depth on this, but awareness is where you need to begin. So number 1, I want you to write down exactly the outcomes that you're experiencing, either now or in the past. What is it? What is it you're experiencing? If you're not making enough money, or if you're living paycheck to paycheck or commission check to commission check, write that down. You need to have an awareness. What outcomes are you experiencing when you talk to people? Are people ignoring you? Are they really excited when they come to a meeting and then they go cold on you? Write that down. You need to be fully aware in each of the areas that you're trying to change of what outcome you're experiencing. Number 2, awareness. Again, describe in detail what processes you're following to get those outcomes. Well, when I invite them to come to a meeting, one of my belief processes is, oh, if I can just get them there, then they'll sign up. Write that down if that's a true process that you're following. Or if you have a belief process of, oh, I don't want to talk, I'll screw it up. I want to just rely on my fab member or my leader. You need to be aware of that. If you're not aware, you cannot change it. If you don't know your processes, you can't change your outcomes. So your habits, what is it that you do? One of the stories that some of you have heard me tell, when I was in grade school, I used to get picked on, and I didn't realize that one of the processes that I followed right before I get picked on is I would stare at the kids that supposedly were bullies, because I was afraid, oh, I wonder if they're going to come over here. I wonder if they're going to pick on me. And then guess what happened in their process? Hey, that weird kid over there staring at us. So they'd get over and come over and say, hey, what you looking at? And then I would, fight or flight. I'd freeze like a deer. And I wouldn't say anything. And next thing you know, would end up in a brawl, because that's what you do in a redneck school. So what processes are you following? Step number 3. And you notice I said it's an action step, even though I'm calling it awareness. Identify the earliest point in each of your processes where you have high control and high influence. So what can you change? So for me in that scenario, what could I change in that process? Well, number 1, I could change not staring at those kids, right? Number 2, the belief. Maybe that's actually the number 1, the belief system. I actually did change that belief. I changed the belief that there were actually bullies out there trying to get me. And I actually changed the belief that, hey, you know what? Everybody's my friend. And sure enough, everybody was my friend. And I never had a problem with it ever again. Oh, it looks like we have an appointment reminder. Let's see if we can get back. All right, there you go. So identify the earliest point in each of your processes where you have high control and high influence. So beliefs, habits, strategies. Number 4, write down exactly what outcomes you would need to change. Let's see, let me move this over. I'm not able to read my own writing here. Okay, exactly what outcomes you would like instead of the ones you're experiencing. So once you know what you're experiencing, what do you want to have different? What do you want to experience that's different? If it's income, A lot of people don't know what they want, and I not only find this fascinating, I find it painful. I find it painful because it's a process that I've experienced many, many times. If you want a really quick exercise to determine what you want, write down everything, just a full list. Take a piece of paper, divide it in half. On the left, write down everything you don't like about your life. Just write down. And then on the opposite side, write the complete opposite of what you just wrote down. I don't like how I live paycheck to paycheck. Well, what's the complete opposite of that? I don't even worry about paycheck to paycheck because I have an abundance of income. That's what you actually want, believe it or not. I don't like how I get in fights with my spouse. Well, what's the complete opposite of that? I have a peaceful, loving, wonderful relationship with my spouse where we build each other up. So, quick exercise for you there. Step number 5. Again, this is an awareness step. Describe in detail the exact processes you believe, oh, I misspelled there, typo, thank you, you believe would lead to the outcomes you want. You have to map a new process. What would that look like? If I could wave a magic wand, you wake up tomorrow and everything is perfect in your business, what's that look like? What steps take you to that? Now, one of the greatest shortcuts in life that you can ever learn is find somebody else that's already done what you want to do and replicate it. So look at somebody else's processes. That's what Woody did when he went out riding. That's what I've done many, many times in my career, is look at what others have done and replicate it. So step number 6, awareness. Rank the processes and associated action points by highest to lowest influence on your desired outcomes. I believe that there are processes that you change that have a higher ripple effect. A lot of you know that I've trained with Ron Williams for several years now, and I can tell you just changing my personal health has had a ripple effect on my relationships. It's had a ripple effect on my confidence, had a ripple effect on my income. Changing my beliefs about money has probably been the largest ripple effect. So that's a belief that I've gone through, and I've learned a way to resolve limiting belief processes so that there are no longer shackles holding me back. So go ahead and prioritize those, and then finally, once you've ranked those, pick the one that has the highest influence, make a plan, and take action. And the easiest way to do that is to divide that process into projects. So what's missing in the process, what's already existing in the process, and what's there but it's not really effective. Take 3 markers. Take a red one, a yellow one, and a green one. Write out your process, draw a pipe. If it's already there and it's working great, put a green dot on it. If it's there but it's not quite where you need it to be, put a yellow dot on it. If it's not there at all and it needs to be, put a red dot on it. Then start with the red dots that are earliest in that process. Set a project, set a time, put it on your calendar, set some accountability, leverage it with some rewards, and move forward. Now, hey guys, I know we're mostly out of time here. I think we've got about 5 minutes for Q&A. So go ahead and text over questions that you have to Woody's cell phone.
Once again, my cell number is 951-973-3408. That's 951-973-3408. And we will go ahead and take those texts and text me, and we'll answer those up until the quarter till, and we'll have to end the top of a quarter till. So thank you so much.
Okay. So just waiting for those questions to come in. What do we got here? So spend a little more time on number 6. Okay, rank the processes and associated action points by the highest and lowest influence. Okay, so when I say rank the processes, remember those three major processes are your beliefs, your strategies, and your habits. So if you were to change, when we come to desired the action points. If you were to change a limiting belief, that is a process. If you were to change that, so if right now you believe that money is bad and it's wrong for you to receive money, what would that do for your business? If that's one of those processes that you need to change, rank that, and that's probably higher on your list than changing a habit, changing a habit of not making enough phone calls, right? Not doing enough follow-up calls. It is an important one, and it absolutely will impact your business. But if you still have a belief that money is bad and it's wrong for you to have money, then even when you get on those phone calls, horses can smell fear a mile away, and I guarantee you your prospective clients can smell it even more. Okay, go over again the markers and how you rank processes within the markers. So I think this is kind of the same question. So just imagine, if you got a piece of paper, draw out a pipe. So one of the easiest one is, like, if you don't have enough clients, draw a straight line like a pipe, and on the far right, absolute, complete, satisfied client, or maybe even write them down as a extreme combo fab member. Maybe one of the people you sign up as a fab member. And on the far left, you write complete stranger. What are the steps in that process that lead up to that point? Now, the earliest step in the process, as far back as you can go, is going to be that marker point, right? So if all the way back on complete stranger, you mark processes. What are my beliefs before I confront that person? What are the habits that I'm going to need to deploy? So, asking questions as opposed to show up and throw up. What am I going to do to build relationships with that person to help them change their belief system, et cetera, et cetera. And, of course, strategies. What strategies am I going to implement? That's strategies is a whole big bucket of content that honestly we could spend weeks on. Next question. How are habits different than strategies? Okay, that is a great question. Absolutely great question. So let's just go back to high jumping real fast. So the difference, the habit is that he woke up every morning at 5 a.m. and exercised and worked. The habit is that he is the way that he moved his body to where he didn't have to think about it. When he left the ground, his body automatically started bending backwards in a certain way. The strategy is the fact that he actually ran that direction and bent his back going the other direction. So in your own business, a strategy is your approach to business. So you look at the Apple story. A strategy was, instead of doing what everyone else was doing to get into the MP3 market, the strategy was, let's control the consumption model. Let's actually create an iTunes store. That's a strategy. It's an earlier in the process strategy, instead of a habit of, let's just see if we can work harder and faster and more efficiently so we can get our costs down on these MP3 players, if that makes sense. I think we have time for one more question. No, looks like we're out of time. Hey guys, appreciate all the questions. Again, I know this is a lot of content, and we'll have to do some additional trainings on this, but hopefully you've gotten some things that will change the way that you do business. Remember, if you change your process, you absolutely will change your outcomes.
Once again, I want to thank Levi for coming on board and help us out today. It was absolutely phenomenal. The reason why we've got Mr. Universe in our midst is because of Levi. Ron hired Levi years ago to strategize and basically to change his process, to change his business outcome, and he did, and that led him to being introduced to Renata. So we're very grateful for him on a multitude of reasons. But once again, guys, know that I love you. I'm proud of you. Reach for the stars. Push hard. Make the impossible a reality. And next week, we're going to go heavily into your beliefs, how they are created, why they're created, so that we can tackle beliefs, so that we can tackle the first part of the three-legged stool. So thank you so much. Have a fantastic day, and we'll talk next week, same time.